Ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? So let's enjoy the event by welcoming Paran and the stage.
Okay.
All right, well, thank you, Paran. So
Thank
nice
you so much.
to have you here today, and we're all very excited to learn more about you today. I would like to start out just asking a little bit about your background, sort of how you made your way to where you are. I understand that you were born in India and shortly after moved to Canada. So how did you make your way to UC Riverside?
Sure. So, yes, I was born in India, in Calcutta, and then my mom and dad moved to Montreal. My dad was actually getting his PhD at McGill University in marketing, of all things. And I was still in India. And so the story goes, as my dad was saying earlier on, that some family friends were making their way from India to Montreal or New York. I don't actually remember which city, but they said, hey, so we bring Paran over. And I guess my parents said, sure. And I came over, and I got stopped at the border, apparently. They didn't like me so much. Trump didn't like me, I don't know, or someone close to him. So my dad's in class teaching, and I guess he was really upset that they're going to send me home to India. And he said something, because my dad doesn't know he wears his emotions on his sleeve, and one of his students comes up to him after class and says, hey, so, and my mom said it's an uncle, my dad said it's a friend, said my uncle or friend is the head of immigration. And so next thing you know, I made it into Canada, into Montreal. From there we moved to Chico. My dad taught at Chico State University. And then we moved to LA. I went to high school in LA, and then I came to college out here at UCR.
Fantastic. It's good to have the right kind of friends to get you into the right country you need to be in.
Yes, exactly. It's all who you know.
Well, can you tell us a little bit about your experience as a student at UCR and some of the things that you found most valuable or impactful about your experience here?
Sure. So I was not your typical student, right? I was paying for a lot of college myself. I worked full-time. I started as a busboy, then I was a waiter. Then I worked at Nordstrom. I don't know if you still have it here, but Tyler, there used to be a Nordstrom. Is there a Nordstrom out there, anyone?
Yeah.
Okay, there's a Nordstrom, thank you. And I actually worked for Pete and Dan Nordstrom themselves. And so I worked there. So I worked 40 to 50 hours a week on average. I would take my exams on extended lunch breaks. But what I would say is, coming to you, I got into SC, I got into Berkeley and UCR. And I chose UCR because it provided me the broadest framework and the broadest curriculum to kind of figure out what I wanted to do. So for me, even though I worked a lot, I made some amazing friends. I lived in the dorms back in the day, and then really close to campus afterwards. But it was a great experience between understanding business, right, having to pay bills, and also getting a taste of kind of socialization while providing a broad framework of education to determine what I actually was passionate about and what I wanted to do.
So if you could go back in time and give yourself advice as a college student, is there anything that you would have done differently while at UCR?
It's a great question. I just did, oddly enough, someone saw that ad that is floating around here somewhere, and there was a guy I used to work with and his wife. And his wife I interviewed for a position with our company a while ago. She didn't work with us. And she said, my son's applying to schools, and we want him to apply to Riverside. He doesn't want to. Will you talk to him? And I said, sure. And I said, and he was going through the same thing. He was talking also about state schools. And first of all and foremost, said, look, in the UC system, if you're interested in business, it's hard to really beat UCR. But he asked me the same question you just did, which was, if I was going to give advice to an incoming either freshman or a graduate student, and it's all the same, the biggest advice I can give people is go off your gut, listen to your instinct, and find what you're passionate about. You know, the company, how many of you actually know what the Modern Marketing Summit does? You guys know? There's a few. So, do you guys want me to tell you what we do? A little bit? Okay. So, we are the largest conference in marketing, media, and advertising around the world. We do about 50 shows. It started, I don't know where, I can't remember. I'm just going to go on a tangent, okay? So, if I repeat myself, sorry. So, after UCR, I worked in advertising, and then one day I became chief marketing officer, would speak all around the world. And I would go to these shows, and they would suck, right? They were just really bad. Bad speakers, not fun, bad food, bad locations. And for me, I was chief marketing officer, it was all one-sided, right? It was all salespeople trying to sell each other stuff. I said, what? That doesn't work. And so I created a conference that brought together large-scale brands, Fortune 1000 brands, CEOs of big ad agencies, and then leading tech providers together in one room. So we get the CMOs of almost every single major brand, from the CMO of Unilever to MasterCard to Coke to Pepsi to Nestle, you name it, as well as CEOs of most of the major ad agencies. The long story short is that was not meant to be a business, right? It was not. It was meant to just bring some friends together from the ad industry, from the tech industry, to all get along. And then all of a sudden it became a business, and all of a sudden I started making money, and all of a sudden someone wanted to buy the company. So find what you're passionate about, and the money will come. And early in my career, I learned that, and that is really the theme that evolved through my work experience.
So how early in your career did you find that passion?
So you know what's funny is I remember, I don't remember how old I was, but I used to type, my dad's a professor in marketing, and he used to get me to do his grunt work when I was like a kid. And I mean typing out his final exams on, like, I had an Apple IIe or C or one of those really, really old, original, Apple guys. And I used to, on my dot matrix printer, he'd give me, write up his stuff. Can you type out these final exams and midterm exams? So I'd type them out, right? Make it easy. And I used to read it going, yeah, this is kind of interesting. And in high school, I took a marketing class, and I'm like, interesting. And then when I got here to UCR, I took accounting, hated it. Took economics, hated it. Marketing was I just knew it was part of me. And so it was like going with my gut. And the story goes is when I graduated, I had an offer from Anheuser-Busch. I don't know if we're jumping ahead again. We probably are.
No, this is right where we want to go. Perfect.
I had an offer from Anheuser-Busch. Had an offers from Ernest and Julio Gallo wines. So the alcohol guys was pretty alluring. I'm just saying. And then one from Enterprise Rent-A-Car, and I'm a car guy, so I was like. And then I interviewed at this company, this ad agency, BBDO, and I walked in and I fell in love, and I knew that's where it was going to be. I know that is one of our projects.
I heard about that, how you actually landed that first job, and I understand it was kind of a mistake.
It was a mistake, and this is really important because, you have to, if you want to be in the mix, you got to get out of, you have to get out of your comfort zone, and you have to go to whatever industry you want to be in. If it's marketing, if it's, it's probably going to be Santa Monica, West Side LA, or New York. They call it Madison Avenue for a reason. But I went to go have dinner with an alum. He had graduated the year before me. He was working, I don't even know, he was actually doing recruiting, right, of all things, for an accounting firm. It was like Apple One Temporary Services, which I think still exists. And so I had dinner with him, and I brought my resume, because, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and so I'm like, hey, so what do you think of my resume, right? Can you get me a job paying $100,000 a year? Whatever, we had dinner, and I left my resume there. And the next day he called me up and said, so I got this accounting job, but it's at this ad agency. It pays 19 grand a year, no overtime, but you should go check it out. So I'm like, okay, it was at BBDO. I had heard of it. I knew it was one of the biggest ad agencies in the world. So I went in, and I walked in the doors, and it was like the heavens had opened up, right? It was all super hip and cool, and it was glass and steel and concrete and young people and dogs running around, and I was like, I have found, you know, where I want to work. And they paid literally less than half all the other gigs, but I kind of went with my gut, and I took the gig, and you know, kind of that evolved into another job at Saatchi and Saatchi, and that evolved, and that evolved, and that evolved. So, you know, the biggest advice is really test a lot of stuff, you know, and this is a great place to do that. You know, seeing what you really are passionate about. If it's economics, accounting, whatever, but finding what your gut is telling you that you really are excited about, and the money will come.
So you started out with this marketing job. What then led you to decide to start your own company?
Well, that's a great question, and I touched on it a little bit. So after BBDO, I was at Saatchi, and then I worked at a bunch of big ad agencies. I worked at Ketchum, I worked at Bates, and the last two jobs I worked at DDB, where I ran their LA office and started a digital media practice. And then I went to McCann, and again ran their LA office, and then ran digital media for them across the country. And I was in LA, and I kind of felt like I hit this like ceiling. And I was thinking, okay, so you know, I run an office, what else am I gonna do? And then McCann had offered me a job to run 7 offices in North and South America, and their General Motors account in North and South America. I'm a car guy, they were gonna move me to Miami or Sao Paulo. It was a dream job any way you sliced it. And then this thing called mobile happened, right? And I kind of saw this as the second coming, right, of the internet. And so I took this job as chief marketing officer, as I alluded to before, at a company called Jumptap. And so again, I would speak all around the world. And it was all salespeople, right? And the model for conferences was, I sell you a ticket, I sell you a ticket, I sell you a ticket. That's how they made money. And I said, well, this doesn't make sense, right? Ad agency and brands, they're not gonna pay to attend a conference. And the analogy I used was probably from my single days, and my wife laughs about this, was that's like charging girls at a nightclub to come in. You don't charge girls. They come in for free. You charge guys like me a cover charge, and then you charge them again $400 to buy a bottle of Grey Goose that costs $30 at Costco, right? So the model we had for our conferences was very much nightclub oriented, oddly enough, in the beginning, where brands and agencies attend for free, everybody else pays. Brands and agencies come for free, speak for free, eat for free, we bring them in by the truckload. If you sell to a brand or an agency, that means the Google, the Yahoo, the Facebook, NBC, if you sell something, technology, a banner, a TV spot, a print ad, you gotta pay. And our shows average about 77% brands and agencies, people who buy advertising. It's like going to a nightclub, if you're a guy, and having 77% girls. Your odds are pretty good at meeting your future wife. So that's how it all happened. And we also believed in no commercials, right? So while other conferences would have a sponsor get on stage and say, okay, so you can buy this banner and this is the commercial. I said, that's really boring. I don't want to, if I want to hear what Yahoo's got to sell, I can call them and they'll come to my agency and they'll pitch it. So we integrated sponsors organically into the content. So let's say it was a sponsor who was selling what's called rich media. They would moderate a panel of brands and agencies on rich media, so they could be the quarterback steering that conversation left, right, center, but they could never be commercial, right? Because the days of force feeding a commercial, you know, we felt, at least in the conference business, were over. Or if they were doing a fireside chat, instead of the salesperson being interviewed and just doing a commercial, we had the salesperson interview the brand or an agency, right? And we had a briefing call, and we talked about the organic things that we're working on together to showcase thought leadership. So it was very, very different in terms of how we approached doing a conference. We also didn't do them in like stale kind of locations. We did them in old churches, we did them in nightclubs, we had food trucks, we had DJs, we had Grover keynote one of our shows. We had Mattis Yahoo. We did a show in the oldest Jewish Reform synagogue in the country in New York. that is now Center for Performing Arts. And then we had Matisyahu. He's a Jewish rapper, do a private acoustic show. We try and mix it up to make it a little bit more fun. Because if you're going to spend a full day with us from 9 to 5, why can't you have good food? Good food doesn't have to be expensive. Why can't you have, fun, sexy, engaging speakers? And yes, we'll get you the top brands and agencies, but sometimes we might mix it up and we might have Grover. Or Nicki Minaj was trying to speak at our last show in New York. It didn't work out, but why don't we mix it up a little bit? So that was a long way to probably answer.
I'm ready to go to one. We'll all be at the next one. So it sounds like you're going to come up with all these great ideas and this company that you've created. But what do you think some of the biggest challenges are for running your own company?
It's a great question. A lot of people. So we were not venture backed, right? Let me be clear. We were profitable from day one. And I think too many people ignore fundamental business profit, loss, revenue, staffing, business metrics, and they, in today's economy especially, where tech is all the rage, they forget about, hey, we've got to make money. In some capacity, there's got to be a business model here. So I think focusing on core business components is very important. I think listening to your audience is super important. That was something very early on that we did, whether it was the speakers, the sponsors, or the attendees, and staying true to yourself, and also keeping it simple, right? Really trying to get rid of all the noise, because there's so many times where people came to us and said, "Hey, so we want to do a show in Israel, South Africa, here, there," and we really tried to stay focused and simple on the core value proposition. That is bringing brands and agencies together with the leading tech providers in the world.
I'd like to ask you a couple of questions now about the marketing industry. I think you're one of the experts that can actually give some really great insight into this. It seems a lot of marketers are very concerned with getting a bigger audience, a bigger and bigger audience. What are your thoughts about how marketers should focus on getting a better audience?
That's a great question. So it's funny, if you see what's happening in marketing and advertising right now, in general, the idea is technology enablement through what we call programmatic media. Now that takes into account things like data, location, channel, whether it's mobile, PC, whatever, to make the buying process efficient and targeted. Now that was kind of the big theme of 2015. The big theme of 2016 is storytelling, right? So what I like to say, it's part context and part content. Context is all the technology, context is the message that goes there. And I guess it would also be a little bit of kind of art and science. Science being the technology, art being the message. And more, you've got to balance that, because you can use all the technology in the world. If you've got a crappy ad, they're going to ignore it. And you've got an amazing ad to the wrong audience, it's not going to work. So what we're seeing is kind of the blending of art and science. Science from all these venture-backed technology companies that are enabling it, and art from the agencies that are really evolving how they create their messaging to be much more integrated, to be much less intrusive within overall media consumption.
So you mentioned 2016 has been a lot of the storytelling. We've also seen in 2016 exponential growth in mobile usage.
Sure.
What do you think the most effective ways are for marketers to really harness that growth?
It's funny. So what I didn't say is the Modern Marketing Summit, the original name was Mobile Media Summit. That's the original name. And in spring of 2016, we evolved the brand to Modern Marketing Summit. And what we say is it's rooted in mobile, focused on innovation, because mobile is touching all aspects of the marketing mix. What we tell people is they've got to look mobile first. And mobile first from an experience, from a utility, across the entire business. How, when I am on your site, in your app, how can I accomplish what I need to do right away? It's funny because, early on, Google was, I'm mobile first, then it was Facebook, they're mobile first, and then AOL, mobile first, then my mom was mobile. Like, everyone was like, AOL, when AOL says they're mobile first, come on. I think we've kind of jumped the shark, guys. I remember, I think we do a show during Art Basel where it's CMOs, CEOs, and CBS said they were mobile first. I'm like, okay. So I hate to use the term mobile first, but really, looking at your audience, understanding that over 50% of them are accessing your site from a mobile device, how can I provide an experience that provides the utility that the consumer wants?
Okay, so that's what's happening right now.
Yeah.
2016, the most important things in 2016. What, in your mind, do you think the trends will be in 2017?
I think you'll see more fragmentation. I think 2017 is going to be all about connected televisions, right? And how they can sequentially message across multiple screens. They've been talking about it for a while. It's still really early days, but it's no secret that Apple TV, runs on a version of iOS, and so eventually they're going to be able to target you on your cell phone, on your iPhone, on your iPad, on your Mac, on your television, and they'll sequentially message that depending on the screen, depending what messages you've seen prior to that. The same thing with Android. So I think 2017 is going to be all about connected devices across screen and really bringing TV, which has really been the legacy, medium, if you will, into the digital age.
So thinking about the future, thinking about 2017, thinking about the future, what do you think is next for you and how you are going to steer your company towards the future?
It's a great question. We're going to try and incorporate more and more best practices from around the world. About a couple months ago, I spoke in New Delhi, and they were, what they wanted to hear was, okay, what is the rest of the world doing, right? How can we get best practice from the US, from Europe, and how can we incorporate those? So as an organization, we are trying to assemble best practices from all of our shows, right? Because we get chief marketing officers and CEOs who showcase case studies, real world examples from all the top brands on what they're doing, not just in mobile, what they're doing across the innovation spectrum. And we're going to assemble those and disseminate those across our events.
So as you move forward with this company, how do you stay motivated to keep moving forward? What motivates you?
I love the people. We sold the company. So what I didn't say was the company was acquired by the 4th largest event company in the world. After that, the number 2 company, which is Daily Mail Group, who owned AdTech and iMedia, the idea was, had they won, they wanted me to be global CEO. They didn't win, so they were bummed. And they had these 2 companies that they didn't have a CEO for. So I convinced the French guys who bought us to buy them. And so now we do about 50 shows around the world between AdTech, iMedia, and Modern Marketing Summit. And my wife thinks I'm crazy. She reminds me all the time, and my mom, so you don't have to work anymore. But I love it. I'm passionate. It's what got me here. It's what motivates me. The people, I'm passionate about what I do. So it's not really work, right? When I go into the office, my staff thinks I'm crazy sometimes, but in terms of my ideas. But it's this inner gut that drives my passion, and the people that I work with, the people from the industry, many of whom are friends, many of whom came to my wedding. They joke sometimes that they're funding my social life, and I say, you're right, you are, but are you having fun? And they say yes. And they keep paying the sponsorships, and they keep buying tickets. So we'll keep doing it until we're not having fun.
So you mentioned briefly your staff, but I'm curious how then you take that motivation that you have internally and how you transfer that to your staff and keep them motivated.
That's a good question. It's not easy to constantly kind of drive things forward. We really kind of focus on the experience for our guests, and hopefully the staff, and I try and teach them this, that by bringing the industry together, we are the leaders in the industry. We are bringing together, we are driving innovation within marketing for the future. right? When you think about the number of shows and the number of people that come to our events around the world, it's kind of exciting driving innovation. When we have the CMO of MasterCard, when we have the CMO of Wells Fargo, and when we have the CMO of Unilever, I mean, and they're talking about what they're doing and to be able to say, hey, we are the ones bringing these groups together that wouldn't be together normally, and we're pushing the industry forward. So that is what I try and communicate to our staff, and hopefully they get excited. And they get to go to Barcelona, and they get to go to Cannes, they go to Miami and Art Basel, and so, you know, I mean, hopefully they have fun.
And now everyone in this room will be applying for a job.
Yeah.
But speaking of that, I know that you're not doing this alone. I know you probably have fantastic people, fantastic teams that are creating these shows and driving it forward. We have a lot of students in the room today who are getting ready to embark on their careers, sometimes for the first time, sometimes maybe they've returned to school and are looking for something new in the future. So first of all, when you're looking for new employees, what are the things that you are looking for someone to join your team?
It's a really good question. So one of the most important things we look for is whether it's a work history. If you work for well-known companies, you can do anything. You can be the janitor at NBC, I don't care. But the first thing is, you know, where have you worked? Did you work, like for me, Nordstrom was, how I translated that to my interviews was customer service, right? Is, hey, I understand how to deal with multiple personalities. When I interviewed at BBDO many years ago, it's really, you know, I was trained by Nordstrom, right, for Dan and Pete. And I worked for them when they opened their store over here. And so really finding the companies that are the leaders in the industry you want to be in, okay? And work there, and work your way up. I hated accounting. I suck at accounting. I worked as a media accounting coordinator, inputting TV spots, one by one, data entry. But then after a year, I worked my way up into media. And then I got promoted. And then I got recruited by Saatchi and Saatchi. So find companies in the area that you are passionate about. Do whatever you need to do. An internship, work for free, for a minimum wage in the mailroom. And by the way, BBDO normally, they don't hire into media accounting coordinators. They used to hire into the mailroom. That was the starting gig, or a receptionist. I got lucky. That 19 grand a year was a gift. But get involved in those big brand companies in the areas that you want to work in. If you want to be in tech, who's hot in tech? And let's say if it's ad tech, look at Snapchat, look at Twitter, look at Yahoo, look at Google, look at companies that are innovating, that are known in the industry, and do whatever you can to get your foot in the door there. I would also say network like crazy, right? There's a lot of free events. Go to as many events as you can. Get out of your comfort zone and meet people. And just be nice and meet people. And you never know when, mine was a fluke, when something will open up. And literally shaped my entire career.
That is fantastic advice. I think networking is key. As a career advisor, I always recommend to our students to keep networking and not trust the flukes to come along. So you have to put yourself out there, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you.
Put yourself out there.
The funny thing is, so what drives our shows really is content, right? And content comes from speakers. And every speaker has a draw. Mark Zuckerberg's got a draw, the CEO of an ad agency has a draw. And our shows were literally unknown when they started. Unknown, no one had heard of them. Why would the CEO of an ad agency speak there? They would speak there because they knew, because I worked at an agency. Or often how I get speakers is, like when we opened our London show, we knew no one in London. But what I did is I emailed our CEOs in New York, in San Francisco, in LA, in Chicago. I said, hey, who do you know that works in London? Do you have someone at your agency? Can you introduce me, right? Just that networking, even on email, can you introduce me? And they would send lovely emails introducing me, almost vouching for me. And then all of a sudden we had a show in London with this great list of speakers. I mean, imagine getting the CMO, our first show, we had Keith Weed, CMO of Unilever, keynote at the Rosewood Hotel. That was just a fluke, through someone I knew, through someone else, who I happened to meet, got us the CMO of Unilever. And so networking is so, so important.
And I'd argue it's not a fluke because you worked on that network.
Yeah, it's it's a lot of what I call shaking hands and kissing babies.
I just have one more question for you before we open up the floor for questions from the audience. Paran, I would love to know who your role models are and why.
That's great. So that's a pretty interesting question. So I would say first and foremost, I take a little bit from, I try and take little bits from everyone. So I take my work ethic from my dad. My dad bust his ass. Like when we moved to Montreal, we lived in not a one bedroom, a studio apartment, okay? A studio apartment in Montreal in a shithole, right? And he worked his ass off to get us here. I take stuff from my wife. She constantly calms me down because I'm a little crazy sometimes. I'm very passionate. She's like, I'm a Leo, she's a Pisces, so she's the water to my fire. I take stuff from my core group of friends, and they're not always right, but I try and take little bits from each of them, right, to kind of bring in to guide me in terms of where I am today, where I want to be in the future, and just to appreciate things. I think that's really important, just to know where you came from, have gratitude, and appreciate where you are. So.
Thank you, Paran. At this point, we would love to give the audience an opportunity to ask some questions. We do have some students with microphones who will be walking around. I ask that you wait for the microphone before asking your question. So we want to start right up here in front. There we go. That's great.
Mr. Johar, thank you so much for giving us such an insightful speech. I'm Richard from second year MBA UCR. I'm concentrating in marketing, and I did my summer internship in a projector manufacturer. So the question I have is that our marketing department, the people from other departments, they don't think marketing departments are that important, especially for a company that heavily relies on push strategies. So do you have any tips for that? Like drive attention from other departments, get enough supports that we need. Let people know that marketing departments are really important. Because, for example, those sales directors, they earn revenues like billions of dollars every year, so they don't think marketing departments are important. So do you have any tips for that?
Yeah, so I would say the first thing is they have to get, one of the best ways to learn is to get out of your comfort zone, right? So when in 1996, when I was working at, was it 96, 97? So I worked at an ad agency called Bates, right? Bates, they're an international ad agency, and I was, this is pre-email. I had come from another ad agency called Ketchum, and I used to bitch about, hey, how am I going to email my friends at other ad agencies because we don't have email.
Right.
And so I was working on the Hyundai account back then, and Hyundai was the last car company to develop a website. And so the CEO of Bates then said, hey, put that funny looking Indian kid on the website. And there's a reason I'm telling you this story, okay? This is real. So, what I would do, because we had no internet access. I worked for an ad agency, got to develop a website, had no internet access. So what did I do? I got out of my cube, and I went to Circuit City on my lunch breaks, surfed the internet to learn about the internet. What else did I do? I begged for funding to go to see the ad tech shows back in the day. But the key is that you have to get them out of their offices, outside their environment, to hear what other companies are doing in their industry, in other verticals, to learn what's possible, to understand the correlation between sales and marketing and how they can measure that incremental effect that marketing has on sales. So you got to get them outside of that. Okay?
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Okay, we have one over here.
Hi, again. So my name is Alyssa, and I am a first-year MBA student, but I just graduated in the spring from the undergrad degree with a marketing concentration. I'm kind of like you, where I've always worked full-time, been a student full-time, paying my way through school, both undergrad and grad school, and I have these big-time dreams also. And when you took your idea and you wanted to start your own thing, how did you have the capital, both in funds and people, to kind of drive your idea and make it work?
Well, the funny thing is, I was chief marketing officer of this mobile tech startup. And I said, hey guys, so I want to do this conference. And so I was speaking all around the world. And every time I go to a room, I'd say, how many brands and agencies are in the audience? And every time, like 2 people would raise their hand in the back, they'd be shy. And I'm like, well, why am I in like Macau, London, wherever, speaking, if I'm basically selling advertising and there's only 2 buyers of it, right? So I told the CEO, I said, look, I want to do this conference, get my advertising friends together with the mobile friends, let's just like kind of have a party. And I said, do you want to invest in it? And they said, no, but we'll sponsor. And I said, okay, that sounds like a better idea. And then I went to my friends who ran other mobile tech companies and said, look, I just have this idea, do you want to do it? And part of it was from networking, and I guess they invested into me, and it came together. The advice I would have to myself going back, or anyone else, is I wish I had done it earlier, right? It was, I did it, I guess in 2009, so it's been quite a while. The good news is I didn't really do it full time till 12, and we sold in 2015, so it was actually not a long, runway. But I wish I'd done it earlier. I wish I'd gone with my gut earlier and kind of tried something new earlier in my career.
Thank you.
Sure.
Right over here.
Hi, Paran. This is Tom, second year MBA student. Currently studying on general management. Currently, I'm taking the entrepreneurship class, and from a professor, he told us that most of the startup companies, they couldn't profit in the first place. That's like the first step of business. But you mentioned that in the first step of business, you profit. So how did you do that?
Yeah, I agree. I have a lot of friends that are venture capitalists, and I have a lot of friends that are CEOs of tech companies that aren't profitable. What I would say is, what you've seen in the last 12 to 18 months is every single one of them is focusing on profitability. Because when the venture capital money dries out, you got to be a real business. At one point, you got to grow up and say, okay, revenue minus expenses has got to be a positive number. And if it's not, you got problems. So I think you have a window to play with that, right? Where you can burn and lose money. But at some point, you've got to, come back down to business fundamentals and be a profitable venture.
Thank you so much.
Sure.
Oh, right up over here.
Hi. Is this on? Okay. Hi, I'm Leo. I'm a first-year MBA student, and my question to you is pretty simple. How do you look for partners? How do you screen? And what? Let's just focus on those 2 questions first.
So there's 3 kinds of major partners, right? So speakers, we always look for the top speakers in the world. What I tell my content team is, we got to keep, shooting for the stars. Until Jesus Christ comes down or God comes down and speaks at one of our shows, I'm not happy. And I use the joke because the Dalai Lama, I've seen the Dalai Lama speak at a show, so I'm like, if they can get a Dalai Lama, I want either God or Jesus Christ, whoever that might be, to speak at our shows. So we look for big brand partners, agencies that have sex appeal around to drive content at the shows. As it relates to attendees, we curate all the attendees, so it's invite only. Whether you buy a ticket for $1,000 or whether you come for free, everyone has to get screened by our registration team. And then finally, the sponsors, obviously, they're the ones who drive the business. So as long as they pay us, hey, we're good. We'll take their money.
I meant particularly partners within your business.
Partners within our business, like in terms of like media partners?
As in people with equity stake in your firm.
Well, it's funny. We weren't venture capital back, so I own 90% of the business. It wasn't one of those kinds of companies. I understand, like when you're venture backed, obviously you give out options, and I've been through that whole road. We gave out a small amount of equity, and that was to a very small group of people that really influenced the business.
So you're the term is like you're a solopreneur. I think that's the term.
Well, I wouldn't say, we had a few partners in the business very early on. They're no longer with the organization after we sold the company. But it all depended on, their dedication to the company. And, one of them was there multiple years, and so they participated in that, and they did very well. They're not working, they're happy.
So, just really fun question.
Yeah.
Have you ever thought about IPOs? Just for fun.
Sure. You know, I mean, look, the company that acquired us, they're private equity backed,
Yeah.
so they will either go public one day or they will be acquired. And if it's public, be acquired. Look, I like to hit the balls in front of me, and that means, you know, we got a show to deliver in a week or 2 weeks or whatever, and we got to make sure that show is great. Whatever happens, you know, I focus on the business product. The money will come, and that's what happened. We did with our shows, and we never thought we'd be acquired. I know it was just a gathering of people, of friends, and all of a sudden it made money. And then private equity came knocking on our door and said, "Do you want to sell?" So we hired a banker, and then we sent out a letter to 40 strategics. 20 came back with LOIs, which they said was an amazing 50% hit rate. And then we chose 5 to go to term sheets with, and we had a bidding war, and then it just kind of, in my wildest dreams, I would never thought it would have happened.
Thanks, Leo.
I believe I should have.
Yeah, right over here.
Hello. Hi, Octavio, first year MBA student concentrating in Management Information System. So my question is, it's no secret that technically small businesses or any business that's not online, you're really not taking advantage of your customers or your market, etc. What kind of recommendation would you give to small businesses who currently 55% of them aren't online, truly do to put themselves online because they don't have the funds that big corporations would have to truly get like the Marketos, the HubSpots out there to kind of tap into their potential?
Yeah, but that's funny. So we use Marketo, right? Big fan of it. We didn't always use Marketo. We used, back in the day when we were a small, little scrappy business, we used MailChimp, Constant Contact. And we still ran a very profitable business using MailChimp and Constant Contact. And you know, when MailChimp and Constant Contact wasn't working, hey, we used Outlook. You know, we just Outlook emailed people to come to our show or sponsor our show or speak at our show. So marketing automation is wonderful, right? But as a small, you know, how many people can afford Marketo? Not many small businesses can. You kind of graduate. You start small and you work your way up, and as you grow, you scale and you get more and more, you know, fancy and fancier tools. You know, we're at a point that, you know, I like to simplify. You know, the tools are great, but unless I see an ROI from those tools, I sometimes go back down to basics.
Actually, one more question.
Sure, go for it.
How do you feel, or what are your thoughts on kind of artificial intelligence and machine learning and all that stuff, kind of promoting or helping marketing into the future?
So, you know, it's really funny because AI, IoT, wearables, I know those are questions that we were going to cover. We didn't have time for. Look, we're just at the beginning of those, and we've had sessions on that, right? How AI is going to affect advertising, right? In terms of dynamic creative across platforms, we are barely scratching the surfaces. At our last show, which was what city was our last? Which one? New York? Is it in New York? Yeah, I guess it was in New York Advertising Week. Sorry, I got so many shows around the world. One of the holding companies just announced they're having an AI agency that they're starting. What that means, I have no idea, right? Literally. But it's sexy and it's interesting, and brands are desperate to understand how they can use that in terms of marketing. But we are really at the beginning stages of how we use things like AI, IoT, wearables in the marketing mix. I think the next big thing is going to be, you know, television as a channel, then probably wearables, then IoT, and then AI is going to kind of be across all those. And how do I take AI to drive a more relevant ad experience or marketing experience to the audience with the right message at the right time?
Thank you.
Sure.
Right over here in the middle. Here's the microphone.
Good evening. I'm Isaac Altuna. I'm a first year pre-business student, and it's no secret that you're quite successful. But my question to you is, what would you say is the most important quality you have as a person that has made you successful?
Passion. Without don't even think about it. It's people like laugh at me about it. Like when I'm on the phone doing conference calls with speakers or sponsors. It's passion for what I do. I always knew I wanted to get into marketing, and I always loved it, whether it was at the agencies or when I was CMO, but now I'm incredibly passionate about what I do. And call me crazy, but I enjoy it. I enjoy going into the office. I enjoy coming up with strategies, how we're going to evolve, right? Because the business has to evolve, right? I'll give you a great example. So one of the complaints from our sponsors in the course of the last year is, hey, Paran, you get great speakers, but they come in and they leave, right? They don't talk to us. And so I said, what are we going to do about that? How are we going to get these big rock stars to stay and engage with our sponsors and attendees? Because the truth is, they have big egos. You're the CEO of an ad agency, a CMO of a big packaged goods company, whatever. They're in, they're out, they're busy. So it all happened because my wife and I were driving. This is another story. I have all these freaking stories. I'm sorry. But we have 5 minutes left, so I'll tell you. And we're driving for a weekend in Santa Barbara, and I get a call from American Airlines and Citibank saying, hey, we'd like to invite you to a concert. You travel a lot. I spend a lot of time on planes. We want to invite you to a Josh Groban concert. I got no idea who Josh Groban is, but I said, sure, let's go to date night. Babe, let's go see Josh Groban. It's free, good tickets, I'm sure. So we go, and there's a guy there, and a host, and he says, hey, so come backstage and meet Josh Groban. And so they take us backstage with a bunch of other people, and we do a little meet and greet. And it dawned on me, that's what we need to do. We need to do a meet and greet for our sponsors when the speakers get off stage. Because we have like hundreds of speakers that want to speak at our shows. So now every time a speaker gets off stage, they're going to go into a little VIP area where all of our sponsors are going to be. So it's going to be a small room of like 20 people. And the sponsors get to engage with those, they get to engage with the speakers in a very intimate environment. So it's these kind of crazy ideas, whether it's this, or whether it's the venues, or whether it's the catering, and how we can get better catering that within budget, that I am passionate about, that keeps me awake at night, or the venue for where we're going to have our after party in Barcelona. And they think, or like that, I want to do something, an after party in a car wash, and my ops girl goes, you're crazy, we can't do it in a car wash. You know, it's these kind of things that really excite me. And so, to answer, that's a long way of answering your question. The one characteristic I think that's helped me through my career is passion.
Thank you. I really admire your enthusiasm. I find it very contagious.
Thank you.
Thank you again.
My name is Vasudevan, I'm an ex-MBA student. Thank you very much for an enlightening evening. I have enjoyed very much. I'm sure that all of them have enjoyed. I have a question for you. I know that you have plans to get into uncharted waters like Asia, Australia. I want to know how culturally you manipulate different countries. People are different in each country. And how, I would like to have an example from you, how you have overcome an obstacle culturally based, which is different from North America.
Sure, that's great. So, I think part of what makes us successful is that we've got local people in each one of the regions running their businesses. So, for example, with Australia, I've got a managing director based out of Sydney that does the shows in Sydney and New Zealand and is going to be launching in Singapore. So I have to trust in that team to deal with the cultural nuances. Or in India, I've got a team. I opened our show in Delhi a couple of 3-4 months ago. I flew out there for 22 hours and I opened it. And I have to trust that our team understands the cultural nuances in terms of programming the show, selling the sponsorships, to your point, from a price point perspective, right? We give them the roadmap, we give them a template, but we also empower them to make the adjustments necessary for their market. And in the case of New Delhi, they wanted to do this after hours party. And I said, guys, it's never gonna work. People get there at 9 o'clock in the morning. They're not gonna wanna stay till 9 o'clock at night with a band and they had, I think, beer pong in New Delhi. But they said, trust us, they'll stay. They had a board of governors that from top brands and agencies that were going to stay there to host the after party. And sure enough, 9 o'clock at night, after these people had been there since 9 in the morning, the room was packed with people. So I think empowerment is key when it comes to cultural nuances in various regions. I would never, whether it's India, Japan, France, I would never dictate every single aspect of our business. We provide a framework and we look to them to guide us in terms of the nuances of the region, of the business, to run a successful event and a successful business.
It's very much like people who are working for Southwest Airlines feel, except that you're the owner of the company. That's wonderful. And also, I wanted to ask you one more thing. The trust is mutual. It's both ways. And you should be an extraordinary HR guy in order to recruit those people for your partners.
I try to be. You know, I like to tell my HR director that I want to be constantly recruiting. I want to be constantly looking for great people. I don't want to have an open job rec and say, okay, I got to fill this job rec. I just want to meet smart people that can make a material difference in the organization, and maybe we'll make a custom position, right? So I'm constantly, obviously I meet a lot of people at the shows. I meet a lot of people at other shows, but I'm constantly meeting people, looking for smart people that can fit in the organization. Not within an open position, but something that we might create.
I wish you the very best in all the other markets that you're venturing into.
Thank you very much.
Have a great time.
Thank you.
Thank you. I think we have time for one more question, and there's Susan over here with a hand up. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, you already had a microphone. I didn't see that. Go ahead.
Hello, my name is
We'll
Albert.
take two more.
Yes, my name is Albert. I'm a first-year MBA student. I actually did work at an ad agency for 2 years before coming here. And as a marketer, we do need to pay mind to the evolution of marketing. And what you told me about 2016, where the trend is storytelling, and next year is going to be television. How are people? What is your resource for for marketers to stay on top of the game? And how are we able to explain its effectiveness to people when it's very experimental?
So it's, first of all, it's connected television, just to be clear, right? And specifically programmatic television, the ability to buy television within let's say an application format. So our whole show is based on that premise, right? Bringing together thought leaders that are driving innovation in various sectors. Initially, it was mobile, right? So providing case studies in things like rich media, data, location, measurement in mobile. And that's why we evolved the name from Mobile Media Summit to Modern Marketing Summit. So now in 2017, we're going to be showcasing case studies in connected television. There are brands and agencies doing connected television. There's not a lot of them, but we find them, we put them on stage, and they're going to be showcasing the best work they have done so that other people can learn. Does that make sense?
Yeah, totally understand. Thank you, that was very insightful.
Okay.
Sure.
All right, our last question, right over here.
You're on the hot seat. It better be a really good question.
This will be a good one.
Okay.
So I'm Charles. I'm a first-year pre-business student. I was wondering how you feel about the U.S. presidential election.
That's a great question. I would say Trump probably wouldn't have let me in the country. But I squeezed in somehow. So, everyone has their own opinion. We'll see what happens. I'll leave it at that.
All right, thank you so much for
Thank you for having me.